Thanks, Jessica. So I guess mostly I'm on Team Jersey because I'm from New Jersey. So I grew up William Carlos Williams, Allen Ginsberg, Stephen Dunn, Jersey. And then I moved to the Midwest and read other poems and poets, but Williams has always been right there. So when did it start? I have been a reader of Williams since my 7th grade teacher, Mr. Woods, read So Much Depends Upon to our class, and I told him I felt the line breaks pulling me down the page. He asked me to read it out loud. I said, my breaths are just like his breaths. So I'd like to start with a series that I wrote for a dear professor who I studied with at the University of Iowa. And she showed me how poetry is really poetry's. And so these poems are written after Williams' poem, Proletariat Portrait. Studies for a figure representing modern culture, 4D. A double-crossed fence going on a walk, her pilot came to zero, and portrait of zero's cold, one pair's lost reflection, vulture pressured by population, her error solving ether, as if to single protest. She turns the count over, timeline called knowing that all along a song appears. A shoulder shrug, record, an animal head mansion, it will be crowned a hunt. Her apophenia is confusion between book and box. One library built in 2 days, no one said Kaddish. Her work towards invisible, dictionary of purchases, she buried like a yacht. Can you afford that which may afford? A sign of timeline when star and sand rhyme in Russian. The heart is not compared to anything the heart resembles, a mariner, which is how I became careful, dare not call out book. That was the figure of protest. That word may be part of 2 separate feet. And during my last year in college, I started working on the book that Jessica mentioned, called Barn Burn Then. It's about a family whose farm burns down, so they open up a bank on the same site and become bankers. So of course, as I was working on this book, I kept reading Williams, and I was going to read a Williams poem about a bank and then one about a farm, but that might have been too easy and neat. So I'm not going to. But when I was living in Chicago and working on the book, I was running a Poets in the Schools program, and one of the joys of that was watching children read and write poems and be really excited about poems. And so I visited a teacher of mine who was teaching in the program, Matthias Regan, and he was teaching Williams poems to his 7th and 8th graders, and it was amazing to watch them write these poems and read these poems. And Matthias published this chapbook called The Williams Poems, which is my favorite chapbook of all time. And the thing that I saw when I was there were students composing, inventing. Like Williams, they were turning everyday speech into a new meter and dailiness into new subjects. And so I'd like to read 2 poems from this. The first one's by Amanda Kemper. As the woman. As the woman walked past the grocery store, she turned around, then went inside, her hair blowing in the wind. Wearily, she pulled out her change purse to buy some food. Then she left, her old body shaking in the cold. And this one is by Janet Flores, Go Back to Mexico. Go back to Mexico, I'd be more than happy. I'd get the great view from the top of the house again, going uphill and downhill all day long, moving through all the stores on the corners, one by one, going to visit our neighbors and them greeting us with great cheer. And I finished the book, Barn Burn Then, in May, which is why it's possible to be published. And reading over the work while I was still rereading Williams, I recognized many parallels, stolen words, stolen lines, big chunks that were in my book. And I didn't know if I took these from Williams unknowingly. I do know that there's no way he could have taken them from me. So instead of thinking of them as treason, I thought of the confluences as a kind of conversation that is two-sided. So I'd like to end with 4 poems from Barn Burn Then. So if you think I'm stealing, I'm not. I'm conversing. A flower within. A flower within a flower whose history, pressed paradox, add an idea of the particular harvest, one volume as a relief, as 13 different voices, those hard takes by mast, you blame the mast, the entrances like seraphs are exiting and are the falling for another river called parent. The parents said, no, we are not going to cross. Its is not a ghost in their desert, ghost not ghetto, but what was, got in the word the ghost had, left and let a war cry, without a word to cross. First shot where we were crossed, they are not diseases, they are a mistake being made, a shot, shorter description of the building, depending on who forfeits it, and saluted all the inviolate, working to place glory by hold, old lead salute, as though uproar not flying firm, it affirmed, bulwark, you are howling, that lasts, and yes, that waits in the kindling of addresses, evading horse traders as both trader and horse are flittering, great falls, habit from boxcar gilded or fallen apart at the silken banknotes. Should halyard move the farmstead's fictive flagpoles, repetition pulses, the key to key, open a lock, to get well and to be bringing a spark. Time seized the eyelid, oldest dream about Twitch and Creek, that I made the 6th book burn, made a machine and then a machine to burn the machine. Machine exists, patriot exists, despite being forgotten through a window, building a camera to title it, in the follower's resting place between black, is blind as Grubber's orders. This one is Bank Run. Withdraw, as a bird call, barn burner, you made the bank take place, paint over gleaner, over reaper whose craft was rose, a gap, security, like banking on death sentences, the architect's unbuilt work. Teller has no reason in such a state of fire bricks, safe for ember, and bad currencies are safes for ivory, for winter, spelling themselves. An image with breath, how say saved testament, kept it in place of the letter of credit and signed it with the family, name like a fallen flicker, safe because of the safe. This is banking rules. With the entire floor to oneself, it is a sound that stands in for loneliness. Is loneliness a suspect? I suspect, summary without currency, or a care to commit to crimes of care against a figure we cannot figure out division in the first place. I want you to quit worrying the could-haves meant everything. Oh, and this is my last poem. It's called The Way the Bank Works. is by fire. The turning brings it back from its gallows bird's cage. The keep from where this line came at eye is the way. The bank will limit what not to less cries. In these times, adders can be a storm mustering to mask an approach. Robber has a plan. Arrive before 5 marks, and if there is a Pachira, reference the one who arrived, then arrived late at last. Name him in his tongue. Don't say it's a fragment because the teller is listening for orders. Put your trust in scraps. In the bank, notes you're not supposed to remember. A soldier as a dream about. This is the one where the teller meets the robber and rations, says it is time that the adding machine fires a mother. To provide a leg for framing, what kind of sentences apply to that not cited banker who made a sound like this? Thank you.